Today I want to review the Contour Unimouse, but as always, first a disclaimer. I am and I remain an independent expert, therefore I'm not commissioned by the company for any sale, which is the reason why you don't find any sponsored link in the description of the video. Welcome, I'm Olivier Girard, ergonomist, posture therapist, author of the Posture Manual and creator of the Posture Academy. We're first going to discuss the features of the mouse as well as some of its benefits, and I'm going to conclude on some, gray areas. I think that the main feature of this mouse is its extreme adjustability. You see, you can adjust the tilt angle, you can adjust the thumb support here. You have 3 buttons that you can program. The scroll wheel, these 2 buttons you can program also, and you have here the cursor speed. So question 1, is adjustability good or bad? Well, it depends. On a chair, for example, that has 10 functions, the probability that the chair is not well adjusted is higher than if the chair has only 3 functions. Same with the mouse. The more you adjust, the more complicated it can be to find the right position. But now, when you find it, chances are bigger that you're more comfortable. In the past, I have used this mouse in people who had hand disorders because, they needed to regularly change the tilt angle, for example. But anyone who is also passionate with his or her comfort will love it. Now, let's discuss the tilt angle. You see, it can be tilted. I put the MX Vertical next to it. To fairly horizontal to fairly vertical. Somewhere here is probably the most physiological position. Now there's an interesting feature with the tilt angle. I hope you're going to see that on the video. If the mouse is very vertical on a surface that has a little bit of friction like this, it's kind of a leather mat, you see that it tilts sideways. And therefore, I need to make it a bit flatter so that it doesn't tilt anymore. Yeah, it's pure physics, it's logical. That I don't have with the MX Vertical. But honestly, it's more due to the mat that I use than to the mouse itself. So the tilt angle is for your physiology, but it's also for the stability of the mouse depending on the surface on which you use it. Now, extremely interesting feature is that thumb support here. You see, it falls right here under my thumb, and what I didn't realize really before testing it is that on the MX Vertical, my thumb is a little bit more in this position, whereas I can have it here on the Unimouse. So you see, there my thumb is a bit higher than here. As the two are next to each other, you see that we can manage to get more or less the same tilt angle and that the Unimouse is bigger. But somehow it's bigger on the tail end, and probably, here, that place where you put the hand palm is at the same distance from the buttons. So I don't expect that in terms of hand geometry, this one would be more suitable for big hands than this one. The Unimouse has 3 buttons, plus the wheel that you can click, and 2 buttons here. So that's in total 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 programmable buttons. For me, this is left click, this is right click, because these are the things that I use most, but you could very much imagine that if you don't right click a lot, but you double click a lot, you use double click here, right click here. For me, it's the contrary, it's left, right, double. But having the possibility to do a double click with 1 click is very comfortable. The ones I use a bit less are these 2. This one is directly accessible, no problem. This one supposes that you do some kind of a strange movement with your thumb, i.e. either that, to reach it like this, or that. Neither one nor the other is very physiological, so if you want to use 1 thumb button, well, maybe this one for actions that are less frequent than with these 3, but this is really the button that you should use the least, if ever. It's also very interesting to observe that the Unimouse exists for left-handed people as well as for right-handed people, and wired as well as wireless. This one exists only wireless for right-handed people. Therefore, there's more, flexibility with the Unimouse. However, and that was quite surprising for me, the heaviest of the three is the wired mouse. Normally wired mouses are a bit lighter because the battery is heavy. This one is 150 grams, 147. This one is 10 grams less, so the wireless Unimouse is 135. And the lightest one of the three is the MX Vertical, 125. You don't feel it much on the desk surface itself, but as soon as there's a surface which creates a bit of friction, you do feel that there's a bit of difference between the two, especially when you do micro movements. This one will be a bit less mobile than this one, and therefore probably this one is, you could say, less precise if you have a surface that has a bit of, friction coefficient. Let's have a look at the drawbacks of this mouse. I mean, the number one drawback is what I was saying with, friction on a surface such as leather. When you do fine movements, it's true that, you have a bit less control with the Unimouse than with the MX Vertical, and therefore you may want to put it a bit more horizontal. Well, the second drawback for maniac people is that, with micro movements, if you work in a very quiet room, you will hear that this hinge is sometimes a bit squeaky. It's often the case when you have something that moves, it can be that it creates a bit more noise. Third drawback, I have slightly more pressure here on this one than on that one. It's not extremely uncomfortable, but it's true that here there's a slight pressure line. And last drawback, which I think is not the fault of Contour, but is probably the fault of my system, I use two computers. On one of them, the pre-programmed buttons are stable, i.e. the driver is doing its job well. On the other computer, it keeps forgetting the settings every time I restart. So probably there's, again, a Windows 10 problem, but somehow it can happen that the settings aren't stable. Which leads me to the last drawback, especially for those of you who would use it in a corporate setting. As you should install the driver for enjoying all the benefits of the mouse, well, you need to make sure with your IT that you can install such driver. So all in all, this is an absolutely great mouse, I would say, especially for office work. I'm not a gamer myself, but I suspect that gamers may not find it precise enough, not too sure. And comment below to let me know if you have that experience. But everybody who's a geek when it comes to adjustability of the workplace setup, and two, who does mainly traditional office tasks, video editing and all that, will love that mouse. I tell you, it's become my standard mouse, and whenever I demonstrate it, people love it also. So this is a great buy, bit more expensive than the MX Vertical, but nothing dramatic there.